Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm here today to talk about this game, Eternal Decks, that you saw very briefly on your screen there. This is a cooperative game where players are delving into the underworld to free these monsters. I wanted to say kill or defeat, but really you're freeing these monsters. Um, uh, and the monsters are then giving you a curse for having freed them or defeated them. And if you get enough of these little diamonds, these gems, to complete various objectives with the other players, then you get to win the game. Or you lose the game potentially rather quickly. And that is what I'll talk about today in today's favorite mechanism, because the game has a really interesting ebb and flow of almost losing and then not losing at all, at least personally not losing at all for quite some time. The way this works is you lose the game if you ever can't take a turn. And on most of your turns of the game, you are taking a card from your hand and you are playing it in one of these rows. Typically, it's this row, or this row. Sometimes it is also this row. Sometimes you're also discarding cards to remove curses from monsters. When you do that, the cards also go into this bottom row. But I'm going to focus on these middle three rows because these are the rows where you are placing cards to follow a certain rule that the game has given you to try to fill up this row, card by card, turn by turn, to defeat a monster. So in this row, for example, it's saying that I need to place a card with a number that is higher than the previously placed card. And once we fill up this row, I'm only placing one card on my turn. Once we collectively, cooperatively fill up this row, the player who places the final card gets to choose one of the monsters to free, and that player adds an entire deck of cards for that monster to their own deck. That's why this game is called Eternal Decks. You aren't just adding one card at a time to your deck. You are adding an entire deck of cards to your deck, which is pretty cool in itself. I don't think I've seen that before in a game, that you're adding an entire deck of cards to your deck. The reason this is important is because on so many turns of the game, you were trying to play a card from your hand. If you ever empty your deck and have a card and you can't even play a card from your hand, and you can't do one of the other two actions that are a little bit more rare, then everyone loses the game. So you are trying to make sure that all players have cards in their deck. But as I said here, as you fill up the row, I'm the last player to place a card in this row. Only I get a monster. I don't get to spread this deck out that I gain amongst all of the players. I gain that monster's deck of cards. And so in the first game that I played so far, we came very close at the very beginning of the game to losing the game because only one player was getting this deck of cards, and the other player, me, I think in this game, I was almost out of cards. I almost did not have a play in this game, and the other player ended up having to give me some of their cards using another ability so that I could take turns. We survived that initial bump and got to the end of the game. But what I think it does really interesting here with the ebb and flow of the game is that it means that you will have these moments where a player almost loses for the entire group because they run out of cards. And then just barely all other players try to help make sure that player, if that player survives, they get a bunch of cards and they are fine for quite some time after that. And then you're focusing on another player who doesn't have a lot of cards in their deck. So this ebb and flow of it, from player to player, helping out, like actively trying to help out the other players, which I think is wonderful in a cooperative game, I think is just a really clever aspect of Eternal Decks. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to add about this. Oh yeah, the other small component detail I wanted to mention is that this board that you're looking at isn't a printed cardboard board. And it isn't a neoprene mat. It is a play mat, but it's a cloth play mat with really detailed printing. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, you can see it pretty well here. Like some of these are cards. These are cards up here, but this is printed on the mat itself, and the details are really, really nice. So and it folds up in a really concise format into the box, unlike a big neoprene mat. So I was fascinated to see this format used in the game, and I'm curious to see if this is something that we might be able to explore for our games in the future. It's easy to move the mat a little bit, but I was really impressed by how tight of a space it fit into and how detailed the printing was, which is far more detailed than on a neoprene playmat. So yeah, those are my favorite mechanisms and a really cool component in Eternal Decks. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you can think of another game that has this kind of ebb and flow, particularly a cooperative game where one player will almost lose and all other players try to help out that player, and then that player is fine for a while before another player is almost losing and you try to help out that player instead. Let me know about that in the comments below. Thanks.